And we are live. This is the first time, hopefully, many will be using Google Hangouts instead of the crappy Facebook Messenger. Man, big news today. Chris Paul being traded to the Rockets. I did not see that one coming. What are you guys' thoughts?
I didn't see it coming either. It was kind of weird. Initially, yeah, it's probably a good thing for the Rockets. Whenever you get a player like that, of that caliber, especially they didn't have to give up anything huge. Their pick next year is probably going to be a pretty high pick. None of the players that they gave up are transformational players. But it does seem like an interesting fit just because they built their entire offense basically around James Harden and his style of play. And now not just to bring in a player, another point guard, but one that throughout his career has dominated the ball. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm interested to see what D'Antoni does. He's never had a backcourt like this with two ball handlers. But it makes the Rockets more interesting. I don't know if it makes them insanely better, just because I feel like his Chris Paul's skill set is duplicative of James Harden's. But it keeps them relevant at least another few years.
The thing I don't think this can't be the ending, I guess, sequence for Houston. Because it doesn't make any sense for them to go after, like you're saying, kind of duplicate even the role. Like, I don't know, sometimes you can get both point guards, but they kind of are different kind of point guards. But this is like you're almost duplicating the role in that offense, which doesn't make any sense to me. And I get that Harden can play off the ball, and that offense is going to have a ton of possessions, so it's not that big of a deal. But I just can't help but think that either A, they're going to make another move. Either they have someone they're targeting free agency to kind of bring some more firepower in there, or they could have used those assets to get someone else that and elevated a different position and just kept Harden in the same role instead of splitting the time with Chris Paul. From a Houston perspective, it's going to be interesting to see out. What do you guys think? And it's really interesting to see. Do you think this is a Jerry West thing with the Clippers? Or do you think he just came in and said, I don't want, like Ramona Shelburne said, this is him coming in and saying, we're not going to do the same old thing again. Let's try something new and let's ship him out.
Oh, I absolutely think this was Jerry West. And you know what? It's interesting to me from Chris Paul's standpoint. It kind of reminds me, a little obviously different, but if he really wanted to go to the Rockets, why wouldn't he just opt out of his contract, sign a one-year deal with them? They don't have to give up any of the assets so that, they can drop a few to make salary space. But it reminded me a little bit of when New York, and Carmelo and, all those guys that went to the Nuggets, although none of them were great individually, they were pretty talented. And I would say the Clippers didn't get a terrible haul for, getting rid of Chris Paul. I do think they've got good role players there, and they got a lot younger. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens if they're going to be able to keep Blake Griffin, if they're going to go that route, or if they're going to just go full change everything. But yeah, this has Jerry West, in my opinion, written all over it.
Well, I think it's because basically Chris Paul was able to say, get what he wanted without, losing any money. He was able to say to the Clippers, say, I want to go here, and say to Houston, I'll re-sign the contract with you, and that way he's able to sign for that max money because this is basically his last big contract.
Yeah, so he opted in for one more year, and then he can sign another after this 5-year, I think like $205 million contract is what I saw.
Yeah, which is crazy, but I don't know if I would pay him that much money, but what you can do.
I don't know either. And I always wondered, you never hear about guys that get, they can offer them a little bit more the home, if they stay there, but they always go either max or they don't stay. Like, is there ever like we can offer you $5 million more instead of the full $10 million max? I've never seen that actually happen. I'm curious.
Well, someone will usually show up and force them to max out. You know, another team will come in like Hayward did a few years ago. Charlotte maxed them out, and so Jazz had to.
Still, but that was, I mean, for like somebody that has the bird rights and they can do an extra amount, you know what I mean? That they always go the full max instead of, oh, well, let's go $1 million less than the max, which is still a lot higher than anyone else.
You're saying the home team?
Yeah, the home team.
Well, why? Yeah.
So Durant might be the first one this year. Sounds like he's prepared to take less than the max, even though he can, demand whatever price he wants.
Yeah, and I mean, LeBron did that in Miami, but I've always wondered that. That was just it. Sorry, that was kind of off topic, but it's always made me like everyone's always either full max or they get traded, or they never go like just slightly below the max.
Well, one other thing to consider is Chris Paul is the president of a players association. So he's in a pretty rule. It's his rule, but he's in kind of an interesting situation where he has to somewhat set a precedence and a standard for all the other players that, hey, we're not going to accept less money just to play in a different place.
Help out some building.
We gotta demand as much money as we possibly can. And if they want to get more players, they gotta go into the luxury tax. But we as players shouldn't be taking a step back. Yeah. So I think that's what he's doing here is, hey, I'm gonna get mine in a position to go wherever he wanted to go. I mean, he basically could force the Rockets to, fall into his demands, and the Clippers had no leverage. I mean, he could leave the Clippers high and dry, and so he basically had all the leverage. So he got, kind of the best of both worlds. Yeah, the Rockets get depleted a little bit, but that's not his problem,
Yeah. Do you see Paul George doing the same thing next year potentially?
Well, doesn't have to be this year. Because he doesn't have it, he has one more year on his contract, but he doesn't have the player option, does he?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're right. I thought for some reason he did have the player option, but yeah, I think you're right.
I don't think he does. I think he would have already been
unrestricted.
Yeah, he'd already been out of there. Well, what is interesting is like how many teams have we seen that speculate that Paul George is going to? Like it seems like everyone is just. I don't know, getting a huge chub just thinking about Paul George.
Well, now the Rockets even more so today. I mean,
I know it was all Boston the last few days, and before that was the Lakers, and now today it's the Rockets. I don't see what the Rockets can offer that's anything above what the Celtics or just about any other team could offer for Paul George. But I guess the only teams that are going to offer anything are teams that could potentially he would want to re-sign with.
Like what they would have to give up like Eric Gordon, Nene, like pick swap in 18 and then 19 pick.
Can't do 18 has already gone to the Clippers and 19.
But you can't trade the pick outright, but can't you do a pick swap? Isn't that kind of like the loophole with those pick swaps? Is that you can throw them in on the other year so that you're not technically trading the pick, it's just the pick swap rights.
So I believe because the 18 is top 3 protected, that the 19 they can't trade in case that top 3, in case it doesn't actually happen. And so
just in case the Houston goes into bottom 3,
just in case Chris Paul never makes it back from France with Jimmy Butler, and they just decide to play in the Euro League.
Yeah, it's interesting they got that top 3 in there because that kind of does limit what they can do with that 2019 pick. Like they're probably never going to end up in the bottom 3, but it does limit what they can do.
Yeah, I don't know why they did that either, but so the earliest they could trade or even swap a first-round pick is 2020, from what I understand. But I'm curious, who do you guys think won, lost? Was it pretty even trade? What you guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, for the Clippers, it's hard to say that they won or lost. I mean, they lost their best player, kind of the cornerstone of the franchise for the last 6 years, but they should be happy they got anything for him. He could have just left outright. And so at this point, anything that the Rockets gave them was basically gravy.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how the Clippers do. Like, Do you think they make the playoffs next year?
Depends on if Blake Griffin comes back.
Assuming Blake is there, just say he hated Chris Paul and that's one of the reasons why, and he's like, I'm the man now on the Clippers and I'm gonna resign. Say it's Beverly, what's his name, Lou Williams. I don't know who they're gonna have start the three. Mbah Moute, Griffin.
Probably start either Moute or the other guy, Decker, that they just traded for.
Yeah. Do you think they make the playoffs? Because not like Beverly is crap and
Well, here's the thing. So they were the 4th team last year. If the Jazz, I mean, this is assuming all other things stay the same. Jazz would probably be better. The 6th seed was
assuming the Jazz keep
the Thunder. I'd probably say the Thunder are better. The 7 seed was the Grizzlies. They would probably be in that 7, 8, 9, 10 range.
They probably compete
I
with
do think,
who is 8 again? The Blazers. So Blazers,
right, the Timberwolves.
Grizzlies, the Timberwolves. Yep, all of them kind of just lumped together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if I could put money on it, 8 seed. I think they would be better than the Blazers. Could be wrong on that. But I would put them in that 8, 9, 10 range probably.
Because I could see them talking about the Timberwolves sliding in there.
I could exactly. Timberwolves. We'll talk about them now. I mean, they are. They had a big week. I thought they were going to be, the most talked about thing for the whole week, and I'm really glad we didn't do the podcast yesterday because this trade was huge. I can't believe that it happened. But the Minnesota trade might be just as big, if not bigger, in the long term than even this trade, in my opinion.
Well, considering Jimmy Butler is 4 years younger, 5 years younger than Chris Paul.
4 years younger. That team is stacked with young talent.
Yeah.
I mean, they could be in the next 3, 4, 5 years. They could definitely be a contender. Their window is open for a long time versus, Houston, it's win now.
Well, and I guess I don't know if we can get into our winners and losers of the week, but this will be coming up. But what the hell were the Bulls doing? It doesn't make any sense because I know that this trade, this deal was on the table for them last year or around the time of the draft or right after or something. And they didn't do it. It was exactly Levine because the Bulls, I guess, loved Dunn and Levine in a pick or whatever it was, pick swap. It was like the exact same thing. So the Bulls didn't take it then. Now they're willing to take it, even though they saw that Dunn wasn't even that good this year. And then Levine tore his ACL, and they still take that. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And especially since they gave away that other pick, you'd think at least they would keep both picks.
So let's go into our first winners and losers of the week. Richard, were the Bulls your loser of the week?
Yes. And then they not only did they do this incredibly stupid thing by trading this, but it's not even that they traded Jimmy Butler. It's they got back a first-year guy that obviously isn't even that good. Like, I guess there's still hope for him. And then a guy who is 90% athleticism and 10%, I don't know, dunking. Like, what does he do? Like Levine, like he can score a little bit, but he's coming off an ACL. There's like a little bit there. And then
he had his best year though this year before he got injured.
Yeah, but I mean, are you really going to rely on Zach Levine? I don't know.
And
but anyway,
Bulls have a great track history of guys with coming off knee injuries.
So. Yeah, great, right? Anyway, but then you're like, okay, well, in the draft, and then they drafted Jordan Bell, who's in our preview is one of the guys I was like, I really want the Jazz to get this Jordan Bell guy because he's kind of an energy guy, like can pass the ball, kind of reminds me of like a Draymond Green type, physical energy guy. And lo and behold, the Bulls sell the pick to Golden State. It's like $3 million. They're just like, so they just give Bell to the Warriors just for straight cash.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is Reinsdorf that cheap that they can't even keep their own draft picks that they're selling? It's like it's not like it's the it's not some this isn't New Orleans, this isn't Minnesota, this isn't some crappy franchise. This is the Chicago Bulls, a top 3 market. Like the other 2 markets are sharing teams. Chicago is a huge city, and it's like a huge franchise, and they're selling stuff for just straight money. What are you doing? Like why? Like why do this? It doesn't make any sense. Like I just if I was a Bulls fan, I would be jumping ship, because I was like, that is the stupidest thing. Like, and I really think the selling the pick thing doesn't make any sense, because at least you could say, oh, Jordan Bell, like they're trying to get some value and stuff, but they're just straight up selling him for cash. They're literally not getting any value or acquisition or anything back. It's just for $3 million. When the whole cap is $120 million. Like what? I can't handle how stupid it is.
They're basically saying we have no faith in second round draft picks, and we have no faith in our franchise
to develop
be able to develop second round draft picks. So it's like,
it's funny.
We know
wasn't Jimmy Butler a second round draft pick?
No, he was like
he was the end of the first, wasn't he?
I don't know. Look,
let's look it up.
So one thing along with this is it's just kind of interesting how the West for the last 15 to 20 years has always seemed to hoard a lot of the talent in the league. And it's just, a lot of the free agents, they seem to either stay in the West or head West. There's only been a couple the last, 5 to 10 years that have gone from West to East. But even the guys in the East, Paul George is thinking about heading West. Carmelo, who knows where he could end up. But
I think Carmelo's going West after this. I think he'll go. If he wants to be bought out, I fully expect him to go to a contender in the West, whether that's the Rockets, the Spurs,
Clippers.
Well, I don't know about Clippers, but yeah.
It's just weird to think that one conference can be so much deeper for such a longer period of time. I could see like a 5 to 7 year, stretch.
This has been going on for like 20 years.
20 years now. Yeah. And you can even argue going back before that the Bulls, when Jordan was around, they had the Bulls that were the best team, but
and there was one good team around.
Yeah, like who's to say that the West wasn't actually deeper?
Well, it was. You had Hakeem Olajuwon, you had
Malone,
Admiral, Malone, you had the Pacers, or not the Pacers, the Sonics that were really good.
Yeah,
Charles
the 80s
Barkley.
still had the Lakers were still around.
Yeah, Shaq. Shaq was another one that went from East to West. So it's just interesting to see. Like it seems, a lot of the somewhat newer franchises are in the West. It's trying to see how these old established teams just suck at developing a franchise.
So the Jordan Bell trade, I agree, Richard. That one didn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
That wasn't a trade. That was just a straight up. They just Golden State robbed them. Like, and if I'm Golden State, if I'm what's his name, Pax or whatever at but the Bulls, and I'm like, oh, Golden State wants this guy. Just straight up, they just want him. You got to think like if Golden State wants him, maybe I should keep him.
Yeah.
Like these guys. Look at what they have done. Like they've drafted crazy good the last 4 years, 5 years, and you're just like, well, if these guys are just maybe, we definitely need the $3 million.
So I want to ask this on the Jimmy Butler trade. So who got more back, the Bulls from their trade for Jimmy Butler, or the Clippers? For Chris Paul? Because it's, although you made the good points about Levine coming off ACL and Dunn had an awful year, I actually really like the draft pick that they got. I think that draft pick's much more valuable than the draft pick that the Clippers got. And I think they call him his nickname on PFT's calling him is Baby Dirk, hoping that he'll live up to that. But the dude can shoot threes. He's a big guy. He's not a very good defender, but you know what? I actually like that guy probably more than anyone else that I've really listened to. I think he's got NBA. The big guy from Arizona.
Pass.
And I like him. I would take him over anyone that the Clippers got in return for Chris Paul.
Williams is good.
Well, I think
I mean, Lou Williams. They already have a Lou Williams guy and Jamal Crawford, right? I mean, they're basically the same player.
Throw Lou Williams, Rivers, and Jamal Crawford out there, and you just say, hey, whoever gets the ball first, you're shooting it. It's kind of like pickup ball at Vasa Fitness on Sunday mornings. But yeah, it's all going to depend on this Markkanen kid. And I don't know. I think he's pretty. He's 7 foot, but he plays not like a 7-footer. Which I guess like you could say Dirk was the same way, but I mean you're comparing the best shooting power forward ever, to this guy. It's like, well, I hope so, but
Grant, what do you think?
Context matters. I mean, the Clippers really were not in a position to get anything back for Chris Paul. He was a free agent this year. He could leave and do whatever he wanted. No repercussions. So the fact that they got anything
that's true.
Good. I mean, they don't have anybody that's the upside of their players is not that high, but at least they get some assets.
But if you were the Clippers, Grant, and the Jimmy Butler trade didn't happen, would you rather take what Minnesota offered, or would you rather take what Houston offered?
Well, I'd probably take what Minnesota offered, just because there's more upside to it.
Yeah, and that was kind of the point I was making.
You kind of know what you're getting from Houston.
I do think the Bulls should have gotten more, because Jimmy Butler's still under contract for a whole nother year, and like you were saying, Grant, Chris Paul could have walked away for nothing. So you have to put it in context, but I do think the Bulls needed to make a trade. They shouldn't have given their 16th pick or whatever it was. That was just absolutely ridiculous. If they hadn't done that, I would have said, you know what, the Bulls were not going to win the trade no matter what, but at least they got a decent haul of young potential talent. And they would have had another pick. Imagine if they got to keep that pick and they took another guy in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, the pick swap is what was killer. Yeah. I mean, not only did they get, 2 young players that really don't have I don't know. I mean, Zach LaVine's okay. He's a great athlete, but can't shoot much, doesn't play real defense. Chris Dunn, everybody's pretty crap on him. And so getting that and then just getting a pick swap, I don't know.
Yeah, Minnesota definitely. I mean, they set themselves up nicely. I love the trade for Minnesota, even more than the Houston trade, in my opinion. I think this Minnesota team is really talented. Between them, the Sixers, those 2 teams I'm going to enjoy watching them this coming season. Did you see their new nickname that they gave themselves?
The Federalists or something?
The Feds, yeah, FEDS. So it's the first initial of like all their last names or something like that. But I actually kind of like the nickname. Philadelphia with the history, and the Feds are coming to town. I think it's kind of cool. I'm all in. I don't think it's ridiculous. I actually enjoy when, players give themselves, at least it makes it more fun to watch and gives you something to cheer for or talk about at least. And so I love the Sixers. Timberwolves, I hope that they can do something cool like this as well. Both those 2 teams made big trades, and I'm really excited to watch both of them.
So Richard, who was your winner for the week?
My winner was Kristaps Porzingis, because Phil Jackson is gone, and they don't have to run this stupid triangle offense anymore.
Yeah.
Like now they're actually going to design an offense around one of the best young players in the league and not have Phil Jackson just sabotaging everything. And maybe they'll be able to actually, get rid of Carmelo, kind of start fresh and build around Kristaps. Because I think Kristaps is good enough that people are like, okay, I want to play with this guy. Like they might be able to actually get some free agent signings. And I think he's much more willing to stay now that that Phil is gone. So I think he's the winner.
Rory, what about you? Who are your winners and losers?
All right, so I have a few different winners and losers. My winner of the week is, I thought about going with the Houston Rockets, but there was an even bigger winner this week, and he comes from my favorite football team, the Oakland Raiders. Derek Carr signing a $125 million contract, 5 years, average $25 million. He is $12.5 million signing bonus. He's the big winner of the week. Also, the thing I love about the contract, it sets them up so that they can keep their big names. It's very front-loaded, and so when Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper come up for their deals, they're going to be able to afford to keep them as well. This was a home run win for the Raiders and for Derek Carr. Definitely for Derek Carr, who hasn't even won a playoff game. He hasn't even been to a playoff game. It's crazy. The NFL is basically just next quarterback up gets to be the max, the highest paid quarterback in the league. But you got to have. I mean, he has shown a lot of promise. He's gotten better every single year, and hopefully he'll continue that trend. And so, congrats again to my favorite team and to Derek Carr. He's my big winner of the week.
You know who loves the Derek Carr contract?
Stafford. I was expecting you to say Stafford was your winner of the week, Richard. And I saw a crazy stat or an article basically saying the first $30 million a year quarterback is coming up in probably the next 5 years, and they predicted it'd be Jameis Winston, because at that point there have been so many other next up quarterbacks. Stafford could be 26, and by the time he hits his big time, it could be $30 million a year, which is crazy. And maybe he'll prove himself to earn it. But it seems like a lot of money for some of these guys that haven't even won a Super Bowl. It's crazy.
Haven't been to a playoff.
Exactly. So he's my winner of the week.
Who's your loser?
My loser. I'm very happy about this one. My loser of the week is Justine Kish. Any of you guys hear about her week?
I don't even know who that is.
I don't know who that is either.
So she is in the UFC. She's an MMA fighter, and she was in a chokehold, and she somehow got out of the chokehold. But in the process of doing that, she pooped her pants.
Oh my gosh! What the heck?
And continued to fight. And there are poop stains on the mat for the rest of the night.
I'm looking this up right now.
Didn't she tweet something?
You won't be disappointed. Oh, the greatest part about it was she was great sport. She after she tweeted, she said shit happens, and I mean I love her for that now. She's going to be one of my new favorite UFC fighters. It's a really terrible, shitty thing that happened to her, but the way she handled it. Yeah, exactly. The way she handled it after, I mean, that just made me love it. And but yeah, man, that was super embarrassing. I was dying laughing watching that video. And you don't really see too much of it, but you just see afterwards when she's rolling around like, wait, that's a stain on the ground. That's not blood.
I'm pulling it up right now.
I saw a video where, what was it? It was a GIF online. A lady was running into a store and she's wearing a skirt and she pooped, and there was a turd on the floor, and a guy's like walking behind her and slips on her poop.
Yep, I saw that too. It was on the front page of Reddit today. I think it made it up there.
But I don't know what subreddit was.
It was literally like right after she dropped it too. Like, the guy was walking right behind her.
Oh, disgusting.
So yeah, those are my winners and losers of the week. Grant, good luck topping those.
I can't top those. So I didn't really think about this until about 30 seconds before our podcast. But my loser of the week, I kind of mentioned it earlier, I think is DeAndre Jordan. So 2 years ago, you had the whole Clippers team come out there and basically hold him hostage so that he couldn't sign with the team that he wanted to sign with. And now, 2 years later, he could be left on what is considered basically the worst franchise in the history of the NBA, without Chris Paul and potentially without Blake Griffin, just on this crap team again, doing basically nothing.
Yeah, and he basically made his career on catching lobs from
Chris Paul. And now hope that Austin Rivers can figure out how to pass the ball.
Yeah, I don't see that happening the same way.
So I just think the next 3 years on the Clippers, especially if Blake leaves, is going to be a rough one. I mean, he's getting paid either way, but it's just funny how Chris Paul, held this whole team meeting, got everybody out there to make sure he stays, and then as soon as Chris Paul is able to, he gets out of town. My winner of the week, I have two, kind of related, but my winner is Phil Jackson and the New York Knicks. So Phil Jackson for getting out of the Knicks, and the Knicks for getting rid of Phil Jackson.
Also, Phil got I think $26 million.
A big buyout. Yeah, I think the last 2 years or something. Yeah,
$50,000 a day,
just to do nothing. And
$50,000 a day.
I mean, I don't know who's worse: the Knicks as a franchise and an ownership, or Phil as a GM/president.
Oh, the Knicks.
But
Jimmy Dolan's
but
the worst owner in sports.
Either way, I mean, you could make an argument that Phil was the worst GM/president in sports. I mean, he was terrible. Every move he made was just like the worst move.
Cash on me.
Yeah, but so they're both winners. I mean, they each got rid of
it's a win-win.
The worst thing in sports, basically. But yeah,
that's funny. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts real quick before we move on to the draft. And I saw this article on 538, basically talking about how the Clippers are one of the most underachieving teams of all time. With the amount of talent that they had. And you're going to see, I mean, JJ Redick's going to get paid. He should have been, I mean, he was averaging like 6 threes a game. I mean, that team had all-stars every single year. I think they won on average. If the 5 or 6 years that Chris Paul's been there, I think if you take their average wins, I think they're like second or third in the league for total wins. And yet they've only won, I think, 1 playoff series, maybe 2, but they never made it past the conference semifinals. So I'm curious if you guys kind of agree with that statement, or if any other teams you could think of that might be similar view from yourselves.
Most disappointing team ever. I think that one, and then the Houston team back in like the early to mid 2000s.
With Yao Ming and Tracy McGrady, that was the other team I thought of too.
Because I mean, they set the record for most consecutive wins, but they kind of had the same thing where they just couldn't stay healthy, and that was more season type injuries. This one was like they would get into the playoffs and just bad luck and just crap. But I mean, I would say this one's more disappointing because they were a lot younger. They had a lot. Blake Griffin was an up and coming player, and they weren't ever able to really fill like some of those role positions. And it seemed like Doc kind of messed it up by paying his son a pile of money, and he sucks. And just they weren't ever able to kind of get those pieces in place when they really probably should have. It's up there definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to say that they should have done more when they had 3 All-Stars and they can't even make it like a Western Conference Finals. But at the same time, they happen to be where we have probably the best team of all time, who's been dominant for a 3-year stretch.
But I mean, that's still
only the Jazz this year, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's only half the time too, Grant.
Yeah.
There's 3 years before that too. I mean, that's
They lost to the Rockets last year, even though they were up by like 30 points.
3 games to 1. They were up 3 games to 1.
Josh Smith brings them back.
No, I agree. I mean, they're definitely a disappointment. I'm just trying to make an argument of like, they should.
Don't defend him.
Yeah, they should.
Chris Paul.
Yeah, they should have done more potentially. But would you have favored them ever over the Spurs for the last 4 or 5 years? Would you have ever favored them over the Warriors over the last 4 or 5 years? So yeah, they should have at least the Western Conference Finals, I guess. But
I think over the last 4 or 5 years, one of those years they should have been better than the Spurs. Just with the amount of talent that they had compared to the Spurs, I think a lot of it falls on Doc Rivers. The way the team was constructed. I definitely think they should have made at least a conference finals, which they blew the 3-game-to-1 lead against the Rockets. 2 years ago.
It was like they had another series against like probably should have won.
I think the Thunder maybe last year or two. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, the West has been pretty stacked the last 6 years. I mean, there's a lot of great teams, but for them, this amount of talent, I mean, that is a big three, big four. They had good pieces. I mean, they had decent pieces, and they just had a lot of it was bad luck, injuries. But I put them up there. I can't think of other teams outside of the Rockets in the early 2000s that were as big of a disappointment as the Clippers over the last 6 years.
For that longer stretch. Yeah, I mean, there's been teams with like a single season where you expected high things from them.
Maybe the recent Brooklyn Nets. That was kind of a short-lived thing, but I mean, when they made that trade, like, oh man, the Nets are going to be good the next couple of years, and they were basically irrelevant. Like
maybe as well, the Houston Rockets
good enough to like even like really come into your consciousness right now. But if you really think about it, going back when that trade was made, you're like, oh, teaming up.
Well,
Darren Williams, Joe Johnson, right. Paul Pierce, and Kevin Garnett. You're like, oh, these guys are going to be good, and they were nothing.
That's true. But they just didn't fit together or whatever. But this team, the Clippers,
fast.
Yeah, they did. And the Clippers, the difference there is they had a lot of success in the regular season, whereas the Nets didn't really ever get it together in the regular season.
Yeah, well, at least the Clippers had some success. The Nets were, lauded, and they were supposed to be super good. Mikhail Prokhorov was promising a championship, and Jay-Z was out there, all that. Then they made the playoffs, but they the
other team
did not do anything.
The other one-year team would be the Lakers when they got Steve Nash, Dwight Howard, Kobe.
Well, also 10 years before that when they had Karl Malone and Gary Payton.
Well, they made
it to the finals.
Yeah, but I mean,
like if you make it to the NBA finals, then you just run into the best, top 5 all-time defensive team, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I somewhat agree. I agree.
I would also throw that first-year Cavs team or the first-year Heat team up there, losing to the Mavericks. Nobody expected that.
I just think the Mavericks got ridiculously hot, and what's his name? I think the moment got too big for LeBron. He just wasn't. He was right for the moment.
Looking back, it's like there's things you can justify. It was the first year together, all that stuff. But man, going into that season, everybody expected the Heat to just cakewalk through the NBA.
Yeah.
And when they ran up against a good Mavs team, but not like a great one.
What was the height of Dirk's powers? He was unguardable, basically.
And they just had like all the right role players click at the right moment.
They had Tyson Chandler, getting dunks and
JJ Barea, all these guys that didn't do anything after that, but just had a crazy time.
Everyone peaked.
Deshaun Stevenson, like all these guys that didn't do anything.
Well, Terry hitting like huge shots.
Terry.
No, it's
But this is probably up there with one of the most disappointing teams of all time. This Clippers team.
What do you think about? Me and my buddy were talking about this. What if Ballmer's long-term plan is to take the Clippers to Seattle?
Is that Seattle?
Oh, interesting. He should. Why
I've
not?
heard the rumors before, and I agree. I don't see why he wouldn't do it.
I would do it in a second.
Yeah, nobody, even when the Clippers were way better than the Lakers, everyone in LA still would rather go to a Lakers game than the Clippers game.
Because me and my buddy, we went to a Clippers game. You went
to a playoff game.
We went to Game 5, right? We sat in a third row, and our tickets were $200. That's after fees and everything. So, and the list price was $160 on them.
Yeah, those tickets should have gone for over $1,000.
Yeah,
if that was the Lakers,
$100, and like you're talking like we're sitting there and like Billy Crystal and like what's his name the rapper with the big album right now walks by us 5 times, $200. So that just shows like the demand. Like people, like if the Clippers leave LA, people aren't going to be crying.
Well, and moving them to Seattle is probably you think like the LA market is hard to leave, but going to Seattle, I think, and being the premier team in Seattle, I think that would keep your value just as much as being the second team in LA.
Oh, I think so too. Seattle's a crazy growing area too.
Oh yeah,
still.
And it's getting wealthier as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of corporate support there. Like as far
there's
as
also
season tickets.
Vancouver used to have a franchise, and they're about an hour away drive. Like there's a big market up that way that's not being tapped at all. So that I could see that happening, especially if the Clippers the next few years really start to tank. I could absolutely see that happening, and I would actually like it. I would rather see the Sonics than the Clippers.
And the Clippers kind of get screwed when they're with their scheduling because the Lakers get all the premier days and nights and stuff. So like the Clippers will play a home game and at the same time as like the Grammys or something like that. And so the Lakers are able to choose all the good nights to have, home games. And then the Clippers kind of get second. So they're kind of the proverbial ugly stepchild. And if I was Ballmer, I'd be like, screw this. First of all, the Clippers name is super stupid anyway. Their logo sucks. Just go back, be the Sonics, and it would be. And every NBA fan would think it's super cool, and everybody would love Ballmer.
Everybody loved Ballmer automatically.
Anyway, that's my conspiracy theory: is Ballmer and West are like, screw it. We're giving away our assets, start over, bring a fresh team to Seattle.
That would be cool. We'll see what happens. Before we finish up, we still got to talk about the NBA draft and then free agency. So what were you guys' thoughts on the draft? I love there was a few things. I mean, there was some trades. I thought that Paul George was going to be traded on draft night. That didn't happen. But I loved the Utah Jazz jumping up to 13 to get the guy that they wanted. I thought that was a great move by them. I can't believe Donovan Mitchell fell to 13. Most mocks I had seen had him going top 10, maybe 12 at the lowest. So for him to fall 13, Jazz made the great move to move up. That was my big takeaway. I mean, any other thoughts you guys had?
The weird thing is, so a funny story with Mitchell is I was watching it, and right after Monk got drafted, I was laying on the couch and I fell asleep. Did I tell you guys this?
Yeah, I remember because I was super excited and nobody was on the chat talking to me.
I woke up.
You probably thought you had 20 minutes to 30 minutes.
I was like, I got it. I could take a quick snooze. We're not driving until 24, and I'll just rewind it and watch it or whatever. It's not a big deal. And then they're up and they're like, oh yeah. And then I saw like on the ticker thing traded. What the hell? And so I like rewound. I was like, Donovan Mitchell. Who's Donovan Mitchell? I had no idea who Donovan Mitchell even was. It's like, that's the guy. But the more research I do, put in, like looking at him, and I actually really like the pick. He reminds me a lot of Dwayne Wade in a weird way, as far as his kind of physical style, and they're about the same size. And he's super long. He has a 6'10" wingspan. He's only 6'3".
Really athletic.
Super athletic. So he seems like a really like good kid and super hard worker, and seems like he has a decent offensive game and is developing his outside shot. And I guess he was a baseball player for a long time and didn't start playing basketball until like his sophomore year in high school or something. So I guess he's still relatively new, I guess you could say, to things. And I like that. If Hayward leaves, it's kind of one of those things, or not back to square one, because we still have like Rudy and Favors and a couple Hood and a couple pieces. But he's a guy that you're like, okay, like we have some really good potential coming up here.
Well, even if Hayward stays, it gives them a piece that they can potentially move on from an Exum or even a Hood, or they can trade some of those guys and maybe make a push for a Kevin Love. That makes those guys a little more expendable, because you have this talented rookie that you want to develop, that hopefully you could keep Hill or bring in a point guard, but he can be your point guard or shooting guard of the future, if not right now. And so I love the pick for the Jazz. I hope that Hayward stays because I'd love to see this team next year. And I would absolutely love if the Jazz would pull the trigger and get in this arms race in the West. I mean, why not right now? Let's make a move. I wouldn't go for Paul George on a 1-year deal, but if you have an opportunity to do a 3-way trade with Kevin Love or Kristaps Porzingis, something like that, which I doubt will happen now that Phil's gone. That was our only hope. Is that
was definitely a pie in the sky type of discussion, but it was fun. Well, we could dream.
Yeah,
well, I do think Kevin Love isn't that out of the question, And I was thinking about it. Wouldn't it be funny, is if we traded for Kevin Love, and then because there was whispers about trading for Ricky Rubio, but somehow we got Rubio and Love, so it's Rubio
reunited from their days in Minnesota,
reunited once again. And they have Hayward. It's like all like the white guys. On team.
Like the best 3 white guys in the NBA.
Yeah, the 3 best white guys.
Except for Kristaps. Maybe you could flip the Stifle Tower for Kristaps.
Yeah, just straight up. I was like, you know what? Rudy Gobert, you're pretty like white.
He's not white enough for us, though.
Yeah, it's like I know, and you're European, which helps. But really white. You're the Latvian guy. Anyway, but I have an interesting. Okay, so of the 60 picks in the draft, how many of them do you think were drafted by their original team in the slot? So in other words, like either before the draft traded. So I guess so there's 60. How many trades do you think there was?
Of those picks, geez, I'll say.
Are you guys looking at it? Are you guys cheating right now?
No,
I'm not looking at it at all. Okay. So the first 3 were right. Or the first
2.
Two.
Lakers had their one.
That was their pick. And was it the Sixers pick? Or was it somebody else's?
No, that was their own pick. The Lakers.
It was their own pick.
Lakers.
No, the Sixers.
The Sixers traded with Boston.
Boston, that's right.
But that was even from Sacramento.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought it was from somebody else's team.
So are you saying once the order was set, or are you saying like they've been traded even before the draft started?
Before. So of them, they owned the pick. It was their pick. There was a slide to them, and they picked the player in that spot without trading it.
Man, I'm gonna bet it's super low. I'm gonna say.
Does this include picks traded after the pick or after the draft?
Yeah. So their player, they own the rights currently to the player.
So the Jazz trading their picks. Gotcha. Yeah. I'm going to go super low, and I'm going to say 27 picks of the 60.
I had 28 in my head, but I'll go even lower. I'll say 24.
17. 43 of the 60 picks were traded.
Could you imagine if the NFL was like that?
I was on the wiki page for the 2017 NBA draft, and it was just every one of them is crazy. So look at this: 20 for Harry Giles, Blazers from Memphis via Denver and Cleveland traded to the Sacramento Kings. 31 Frank Jackson, Charlotte Hornets from Brooklyn via Atlanta Hawks traded to New Orleans Pelicans. So there's a lot of them that it's 3, 4, Jordan Bell, Chicago Bulls from Sacramento via Cleveland traded to Golden State Warriors. So it's all these things are just just traded hands.
It's almost
crazy.
Yeah, it's almost draft picks are just some fake currency, just trade these things around they're because nobody really does know their value, especially when you've got drafts that are 2 or 3 years out and you're trading picks in the future, and who knows what's going to happen then. It's all just kind of fake money.
What I did like about what the Jazz did is because they had 4 picks in the draft, they traded up twice for, they gave up 24 and Lyles for 13, and they packaged 30 and 42 for 28, and then they drafted what's his face at the end.
Basically, Gobert's mini me or long tall guy that hopefully can defend the rim and be a potential, but not the solid.
And I actually like Williams Goss as a guy, you know.
Yeah,
Like he's not going to be. I don't think he's anything amazing, but he's definitely a guy that I could see developing. Not even that far into the future, into a guy that you can bring off the bench and you could play him, 15 minutes a game and just be super solid off the bench. Like I foresee that happening pretty easily with him.
Yep, I would agree. So, question for you guys: who do you think had the best draft? So, the Jazz were up there with me. I mean, there's a couple other teams that I thought had really good drafts, but I'm curious what your guys' thoughts were.
I have to go through. Let me look.
So I can say mine off the top. Or Grant, you have some?
I was going to say, I think it's kind of hard because every pick you're getting value at different slots, but did well. I actually like that trade for the Sixers. I didn't really like it too much for Boston. If you can get one of the top two players in what's known as kind of a two-player draft, not a two-player draft, but there's obviously two players that were kind of in a different tier from everybody else. And so trading to get one of those guys.
Do you believe Boston would have – you heard that Danny Ainge afterwards said, we were going to take Tatum at number one no matter what. Do you believe that?
No, because he was also pissed that what's it called? The player that got drafted by the Suns wouldn't work out for them.
Yeah, so I don't believe it at all. I think that's Danny Ainge throwing just smoke up.
It is.
He would have taken Markelle Fultz. He would have taken Fultz number one if.
Oh yeah, because he would have been killed if he didn't.
Yep.
So
anyway, Sixers. You thought I agree with that. Grant, anyone else? Any other teams you thought had a good job?
I didn't like that trade for Boston. I mean, when you got to top the number one pick and just trading it away just for the potential of hopefully you get something better in the future. I know they're always forward looking. I know they want to peak after this Warriors and the Cavs teams kind of start to decline. But I think Fultz is a really good player. I think it's hard to find a guy like him that can do a little bit of everything. Just because you have Isaiah Thomas on the team, and I don't know. I don't think their ceiling's that high with Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, I agree. I love the Sixers. They pulled the trigger. But here's my other surprise team that I thought did well in the draft. The Kings.
No,
I actually thought the Kings got. I mean, they needed to build as much young. They got De'Aaron Fox. They got Zach.
Okay, De'Aaron Fox.
I wish just from a pure fan standpoint. That's exactly what I was going to say. Is it would have been funny if they got both De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk.
Yeah.
But the Kings, they are finally. At least it looks like they're trying to just get as much young talent as possible and rebuild the right way. So I actually thought, I'm not as big on Zach Collins but I like Monk a lot. I like that they traded down to get more assets because that team is nowhere near, being in contention. At this point, they should just trade it and get as many assets as they possibly can.
He's gone to the Blazers. No, they traded out of 10.
That's right. I now forgot about that. So who did they get with the other two? That's what they did.
They got Justin Jackson, who's a guy who's a junior, and I could see him being just a guy in the NBA.
That's
like
true.
He has just.
Oh, I forgot that.
Just guy. Like he can come in, he can do some stuff, but I don't. Who knows how really he's going to be? He's a junior, whatever. They got Harry Giles, who's blown out his knees, both knees, and one of them twice.
But he was the top high. I mean, if the high school rule didn't actually exist, the whole one and done in college, he probably would have been the number one pick.
Yeah, but if he would have stayed in college and said, "Oh, I can score 17 points a game," and stayed, but if he had one more injury, he would not have been draftable. And then who else they got? They got.
I still like
it. They got Frank Mason. Frank Mason. So
Frank Mason, who's like what? 5'0". He's Yogi Ferrell.
Yogi Ferrell.
But not even good.
I disagree. I think, I think the Kings had a good draft for the first time in a long time. Malik Monk can be somebody that they can build around with, hopefully Buddy Hield, shooting-wise. And even if they kept 10 they probably should have. I would have maybe drafted Malik Monk just to have those two guys. But you know what? Dropping down from 10, I don't like Collins that much. But I think just getting as many assets as possible.
But they don't.
I don't mind
Collins.
Harry. I know that's what I'm saying. They traded him so they could get Justin
Yeah, but
Jackson
they could have
and
had
Harry
Malik
Giles.
Monk, or they could have had Donovan Mitchell.
That is true.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Like
would still.
there was better players on the board that would have fit better, and like especially if you go out there, if you're the Kings and you throw out Fox, Monk, and what's his face,
Buddy Hield
out there, just lined up threes. That would have been a fun team to go see. But now you have to go see Harry Giles with ice packs on his knees, walking around with crutches, and Justin Jackson on the end of the bench, and Frank Jackson also on the end of the bench, passing out towels to the boys.
I mean, I get what you're saying, and there's a good point to that.
I feel like they could have gotten a guy there that most likely would have started next year. But instead, they got a guy who's not going to start and a guy who is one injury away from ending his career.
I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, obviously time will tell. So you can't really forecast. I liked it. Obviously you hated it. I think, the Kings needed to just draft as many young guys as they can and just keep rebuilding. I don't think they definitely don't own their pick next year, right?
This isn't the NFL though. In the NFL, yeah, sure. You trade down and just get as many guys as you can because you got to fill 20. You got to fill, 20.
I understand that, Richard, but at the same time, Malik Monk and those guys are not going to make a difference on this Kings team, especially in the Western Conference.
Well, you're talking 3 years from now, though. Malik Monk could score he's a good he scored 47 points in a college game. Malik Monk is crazy good.
I like Monk. I just don't think, I think they took some high character guys. I actually liked it. I think the Kings, they needed to have a complete change of culture. I don't know if drafting 2 Kentucky guys together, having them just start right off the bat was the right way of actually building the team.
They got all the hits into. They got a Duke guy, a UNC guy, a Kansas guy, and didn't they get a UCLA guy or something like that? Like they got all the blue buds in there this year. But I don't know. I thought
we'll see. Who else did you think, Richard? I'm curious obviously you didn't like the Kings, but I liked them. But who did you like in the draft?
No, the Kings is just like, oh, they got all these guys because we know the names. It's like, oh yeah, cool. They got Player of the Year, blah blah blah. I just think 2 years from now we're gonna look like, man, they could have had one of these guys and they passed them up. Like, what were they thinking? But anyway, I think kind of on that note, the two teams I have that were I obviously Jazz are I thought were winners just because I think Donovan Mitchell is going to be the steal of the draft. But outside of that, Charlotte obviously for sitting there and drafting maybe the 3rd best player in the draft in my opinion with Monk, and then Dallas with Dennis Smith Jr. He's a guy that I think is going to fit perfectly. He's going to be able to just go to town, and I think he's really explosive. And with Carlisle coaching him up, I think he could really be pretty good. So those are my 2.
Yeah, I think it was a good spot for them to wait. I'm not as high on Malik Monk as you are. I don't know how his game's going to translate in the NBA. And I worry about him being on Charlotte. I mean, it just kind of is a black hole they keep trying to find guys, and Jordan's kind of he doesn't have the best track record of running that organization. So if I was an NBA player coming into the league, I mean, I probably wouldn't want to play for the Kings, the Hornets, and the Knicks right now. I mean, well, maybe the Knicks now that Phil's gone. But those are both pretty poorly run franchises.
You don't want to go to Orlando is where you don't want to go.
Yeah, Orlando's bad. A few picks I thought were really interesting. The Knicks picking that guy from France, did not see that coming, especially when they had guys like Dennis Smith, Malik Monk, Donovan Mitchell, some solid guys. And maybe he'll turn out to be really great. We'll see. I don't know much about this French guy, but it'll be interesting to watch him. And the other pick that I thought was interesting, I mean, the Jason Tatum pick we talked a little bit about. I'm not as sold on him as Boston is apparently. I mean, between him and Josh Jackson, I didn't think either of them are going to be that great in my opinion. I thought the opportunity to take Lonzo Ball or Markelle Fultz was a much better opportunity than kind of agreeing with what Grant said. So those were two of my interesting picks that I thought about during the draft.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting for Boston because it seemed like they were drafting for need. You know, they need like a post player. It seems like somebody that can score in the low post, which is kind of contrary to everything they've been doing over the last 3 years, which is just drafting upside and drafting talent.
And you got to imagine Boston could have given that third pick for either Paul George or the Chicago Jimmy Butler. Yeah, I mean, it just seems crazy to me.
They would. Having that the number 3 pick or even the number 1 pick, you know, that probably would have gotten
Hayward.
Hayward, I would have got a lot. I probably would have gotten. Would you rather have the number 1 pick if you're the Bulls? Trade like Jimmy Butler maybe or 17 or something like that, or get
absolutely. I would. I mean, absolutely. I'd take the number 1 pick.
I don't know if Ainge was that pick was on the table.
Oh, I don't think it was. I think Ainge. I mean, he's done pretty well his track record, so it's hard to question him. But man,
Grant wasn't here, but I disagree with that. I think he's good at trading, but bad at drafting.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, they haven't drafted anybody that's really exploded at all.
Well, that's my thing is why didn't they trade that pick for Jimmy Butler, and then that's probably a lot more enticing for Hayward to come join the team too. But yeah,
they should. I think they should have just drafted Fultz. I mean, you have number 1 pick. There's the best guy on the board. Just take Fultz and see what happens. I don't know. I mean, at some point you can't just trade stuff for future potential and hope that, you know, they're just going to get more and more stuff. At some point you got to strike while the iron's hot. And I think they just missed that opportunity.
Well, last of all, NBA free agency should be an exciting next few days. I mean, it's already Chris Paul being traded, Gordon Hayward. I'm interested to see where Millsap ends up. I think he's kind of a under the radar guy that can really help a team make it to the next level, being a stretch 4, plays good defense, can shoot the ball, can drive. And so I'm really interested to see where those guys end up. Anyone else in free agency that you guys are watching closely?
I think there's a couple interesting ones.
Yeah.
Or where would you like some of these guys to end up? Let's say that.
I don't know. I mean,
besides the Jazz.
Like if I had to choose for the Jazz, like for Hayward to go anywhere than Jazz, I want to go to Miami, just because it would drive me crazy listening to Bill Simmons talk about Hayward all the time.
Yeah. What about and I thought this one was interesting. Where do you JJ Redick? Where's a good place for him?
I don't know. I'm not too high on JJ Redick lately. I think he's.
Well, I saw an interesting stat, and it was basically like he was underutilized even with the Clippers. He's a guy that should be averaging more 3-point attempts, and he should have probably, if his shooting percentage kept for the amount of attempts he should have been taking, like I say, if he was with Houston or Golden State, he would have been averaging like 8 or 9 threes a game, which would be pretty impressive. I would love to see JJ Redick, and I heard that they're chasing him on the Philadelphia Sixers.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I would.
Boy, Stauskas Castillo.
No. Yeah, come on. I don't know why Stauskas is in the NBA.
He's good.
That makes a lot of sense, though. I mean, they kind of need somewhat of a better presence. Redick's always been kind of
that would. Teammate. Can you imagine? Think of that team, right? So, I mean, they got that young core, and then you got Redick out there just dropping bombs from 3.
That would be fun.
As long as they can stay healthy, which Embiid is the biggest question mark of all that. If he can stay healthy, that would be a really fun team to watch.
And what's
love
crazy
to
is
watch.
we're forgetting that Ben Simmons was the unanimous first overall choice last year.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Like we
completely
forget
forgot
that
about
Ben
him.
Simmons is actually might be really, good.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
if he was in the draft this year,
yeah, Ben Simmons might be what's his face, like Magic Johnson. He's 6'11", super skilled. Can rebound, can get to the rim. And then if they surround him with shooters, like I actually now I want that to happen. I need that. That'll be cool.
yeah, the other team, I guess, really pursuing him, which I don't want him to go there, but they'll probably throw more money, is the New Jersey Nets. That's who the rumor is between those two teams. I would love Philadelphia. That just makes perfect sense to me. I mean, that would just be an exciting team. Millsap, I'm interested to see where he goes. He could go in a lot of directions. And if Atlanta wants to bring him back, they probably can offer the most money. But I also see Atlanta maybe going into full tank mode. And so I think a potential team I would like to see him go to is if Miami, pairing him with Whiteside, and potentially if Hayward went there as well, that would be a pretty good
Who are we
lineup
talking
that
about
they
right
would
now?
have there. Free agency, where some of the players in free agency, you would kind of like to see them go if they, had to leave their team.
Yeah. Who would you like to see in Miami? Sorry, who's that?
Millsap.
Oh, Millsap. Okay. Yeah.
So if Millsap, you pair him with Whiteside, and maybe that entices Hayward to come down.
Yeah.
That would be pretty good young, talented team.
I would say somebody that I would like to see go somewhere else is Blake Griffin. And I'd like to either see him in either Miami, or I think an even cooler fit would be the Phoenix Suns. I think it'd be cool to see Blake Griffin on that Suns team. They've got a lot of young, talented guards. They just kind of need that post player who can – and, they're an athletic team, so it kind of fits in with them. I think that'd be a pretty fun team to watch.
I was fully expecting you to say Oklahoma City because he's from Oklahoma, but I like your answer to Phoenix Suns even better.
Yeah, I don't care about Oklahoma City.
What about Redick to the Spurs? Because that Manu's got to be done, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
that'd be fun.
I've always said I respect the Spurs, but if there's two teams in the NBA that I hate, they're both the San Antonio Spurs. Yeah. And so I do not want them to get – it's just ridiculous how good they've been for this long, and they shouldn't have been. Their talent is nowhere near some of these other teams that they have beaten, which makes me respect Greg Popovich even more, which makes me hate Greg Popovich even more. And so, that would be an interesting fit. They're trying to trade LaMarcus Aldridge to get some cap space so that they can get Chris Paul, but now that Chris Paul is gone, I don't know where they go from there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if LaMarcus Aldridge is on their team next year, if they do end up trading him to a different team.
Yeah. And, anything else before we log off?
No, I think we're at a good time right now.
Oh, good.
All right. I'm stopping the broadcast now.